Hello, lovelies. Hello, family. This is Kimberly Purpoz, and welcome to my channel. Today, I wanted to do a different video, something different. I've been doing some research and still learning some things and trying to read up about the laws as it pertains to indigenous Aborigines. And the word that keeps on coming up a lot is sovereignty, and I want to read up on it. I looked it up under the etymology dictionary. It means mid-14th century. I'm assuming that's when it was created or developed. And it says preeminence. From Anglo-French sovereignty, Old French souveraineté, from sovereign, see sovereign, an adjective. It says meaning authority, rule, supremacy of power or rank, is recorded from late 14th century. Sense of existence as an independent state is from 1715. And I find it interesting that this was created around the 14th century, the late 14th century, and if you look back in history, you'll realize that a lot of this took place when Christopher Columbus came here into the Americas, which he came, I believe it was 1492 or something like that. But don't take my word for it. But it's like you could see how they were planning and scheming and putting words and together. And of course, 1715 is when there was a lot of wars, a lot of the Indian wars taking place. And you can see the correlation of when these words were created and how they were developed, and how the definition and the meanings were created during the time period when they were coming up with their plan that they fully developed. And I found it amazing how they incorporated so intensely into their language, the English language, what their plans were. But this is sovereignty. Sovereignty is something that we need to be studying more about. Let me go back. As indigenous Aborigines, definitely need to be learning about what sovereignty is all about, as it relates to us being here in the Americas. It says chieftain. I thought this was an interesting word. This is oftentimes used a lot. Here's a picture. Again, it says 1570, sovereignty from chiefdom. This is the article I want to talk about. It talks about sovereignty. I don't know if you all, actually it's two articles I want to share with you all, but this is the main one I want to touch on for today. I want to explain how sovereignty works and, how it's indoctrinated. I wouldn't say indoctrinated. It's only certain groups of people are allowed to learn this sovereignty in the classroom, because I know with my kids, at the school they go to, they don't teach this at all. My son, my daughter, none of them. And when I was in school, I didn't hear about this. This is a particular curriculum framework that was developed. I found this. Let me see here. I'm not sure if it tells you who. Here it is, Office of Indian Education, Minnesota, Department of Education. So this is in Minnesota, Roseville, Minnesota. But I found this interesting because the kids that are Native Americans are learning this, and probably some of the gray Caucasoids, the grays, the settlers who are painting themselves as $5 Indians, are teaching their kids this already, and they understand what sovereignty is. See, our kids are indoctrinated to live in a system where there's no such thing as sovereignty, having land, any type of land rights, and learning how to build their own government and their own nation. And see, it limits the perception of ideas. When you are indoctrinated, you're just taught the basis of how to be a worker and work for other people, and never how to become independent and to work and be at one with your land. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I have some theories about how here why gentrification takes place, which is another form of land grabs against the American Aborigines. The lands that the Aborigines and homes the Aborigines own is constantly being taken and stolen for graves and other people who are elites in order to take. They get it for dirt cheap and for less than the value that the Aborigines land is actually worth, and houses, and then they turn around and up the cost and push them further out. And it's another form of stealing lands from the indigenous Aborigines. And I think part of it is because we are following the rules of what the Caucasians created for themselves, and it's rules for graves, but it excludes us and pushes us further away from society. So that's why it's important to learn about sovereignty and going back to our indigenous roots that was stolen from us. So that way we have protection of our own and our lands and nature. And these are some of the things that our children should be learning as well, not just the grays and the half-breeds and a few of the Mongoloids that get a chance to see this. But it's a lesson plan here of a curriculum framework for sovereignty. It's for primary, intermediate, middle school, and senior high. And I want to share this because this is what they're teaching the kids, and I feel like this is wonderful information. And I feel like the American Aborigines, our children, should be learning these as well. And I stumbled across this, and I just found out it just explains, it gives you a breakdown of what sovereignty is, this chart, and how it actually works, because we don't actually see the whole picture. We just see tidbits of information, if anything, and you very rarely hear the word sovereignty at all. I never have. And I think it's like inside it says, right, sovereignty, and then it has nation within nation. Then it has U.S. inside a nation. See, it just sort of paints what's really going on here and give you a wider perspective of what's going on. I think this, it says nation within a nation. That's what sovereignty is. And then there's the United States. You have your own nation within a nation with your own laws that protects yourself. Since the U.S. since the government don't have a protection for blacks, and blacks has no standing in law, according to Obama. He says race. And since they reclassify all the indigenous people with dark skin that are copper colored as, Negro and, Black, Afro-American, African-American, with all these crazy labels, and Black has no standing in law. And then you see here the U.S. is the U.S. inside nation. This is the U.S. And then it just tells you comparable to other nations. And it gives you the models, decision making right here. Sovereignty compares you to other nations, and then you have your own model and you make your own decision. See, sovereignty is very important. Then you have your treaties right here. You have dual citizenship. A person can have dual citizenship if they want. They have legal components, links right here. And the links right here is learning your language, your culture, having treaties, tribal government, tribal policies, taxation, laws. And these is what the sovereignty also entails. Then it has right here the legal component. Then it says members shall generate revenue, right to make treaties. And then it goes down here, laws. And this is all sort of how policy works, Here in the United States, it's called policy making, policies and making laws and rules. Here this is policies created within an indigenous government. Then it shows you the structure here of the land, the hunting and the fish. That's tapping back into nature, like we said, that we would like to do. This is our old country, bringing back what the ancestors saw and how it was, and how it was clean and pure, like the ancestors had it, until the colonizers, the Greys, came over and destroyed it. Then it says here taxation laws, right here, and it says relationship to the state, right here. And I like how this chart just breaks it down. It gives you a bigger perspective, and gives you a bigger picture of how this thing is. You're just scratching the surface, and we just, barely scratching the surface, and you just see how extensive this really is. And then, and this part right here, comparable to other nations, trying to see where this comes from. I guess all this goes out from determination, self-determination. It gives you the definition: self-government, trust, relationships, impact, links with worldview. And see, you have more global viewership, connection with the globe. And this is from self-determination. And see, we haven't self-determination ourselves, determine ourselves, because we still consider ourselves Black and from Africa, when we don't have no rights to any, no type of history or connection to the African land. But we do have connections here in the Americas. When you go back and research and do a thorough analysis of what you see inside of the different places, such as the National Archives, and visiting Library of Congress. I know a YouTuber, she visited the Library of Congress and showed the original books to show that we were here. And it's like all the documents and research and scholarly journal articles, pulling all the information, gathering it up, and that just shows that we're all here. We have too much evidence that shows otherwise, that we definitely here. And this map is just showing you, this chart, I mean to say it's not a map, but the chart is showing you exactly how extensive this really is and how it takes you to the world and maybe even the universe. That's how deep this thing is. And it's deeper than what we think it is. And it says here, the longer outcome, the student would be able to define tribal sovereignty and document the application of this concept in studying history and contemporary issues. And see, this is what we should be learning. My son is in school right now, and he's taking this class on colonization. I really hate that he has to take it, but the school system is so heavily indoctrinated that some of the tests that they have for you to go into the next grade have these crazy historical documents, the historical, I wouldn't say historical stories, stories that were passed down that glorify great conquistadors about winning these wars or cheating on these wars, and these false treaties that they created, that I would say is false treaties. These are treaties that they never agreed to. That's the best way of putting it. And having these treaties in place, and now you're abiding by them or following them and just changing the rules as they go and as they see fit, because they control the pen and the narrative. And that's what happened. And with this colonization in history, our kids are being indoctrinated by learning this false narrative. And the erasure of our history not being included, as being indigenous here as American Aborigines, is also evident in the studying of colonialization with this class. And then they put it in tests that move on to the next grade. And it's like your kids are stuck and have to be forced to learn this crazy history when it's nothing but a false narrative created to put grades on top, when they don't belong there, because this is stolen land. And then if you look at here, this map, this is what these kids are learning. And this is what the American Aboriginal kids should be learning. I will make sure I put a link to this curriculum, because I feel like it's a nice curriculum to get kids started. And these kids and you see they start them young, and even all the way in the elementary school. See, if the kids learn this, it's like giving the kids an identity and understanding the world as a whole and how they can change things and can make a difference if they had the knowledge and the wisdom to do so. But it says here, attributes. Oh, it says attributes. This outcomes include in defining tribal sovereignty, relating tribal sovereignty to the concept of dual citizenship. See, I think that's interesting. Understand, being able to have you be in your tribe and also have dual citizenship. Some people have dual citizenship with the U.S., in the Native American tribe in the U.S. or the Native American tribe or whatever country. It could be Connecticut. Not Connecticut. It could be Canada. That's what I meant to say, Canada. And it says here, understanding the impact of contemporary issues such as gaming and hunting, fishing rights. And that's, like I said, connecting and being at one with nature and having it written in your own laws to keep that in place and valuing and protecting the land. And it says recognizing historic links to treaties. It's also very important. And it says here, the rationale, tribal sovereignty is a vital issue to American Indian tribes today. All students should have knowledge of this concept in order to understand American Indian culture of the past and contemporary tribal issues. Students will be able to function as responsible citizens if they know how sovereignty affects interactions of tribes with the federal government, the state of Minnesota, and local government units. And see, I think this is interesting. I like how they explained it. And like I said, our children don't have a clue and don't even know about all of this stuff. And this is something they should know. They think it's just Native Americans that's supposed to learn this. And sometimes they'll say, if they don't know the history and the background, they'll say, oh, this is just for Native Americans. No, this is for you too, because you are the true American Aborigines. You are the Paleo Indians. I don't know, I like using Paleo. I explained that in another video about paleo in this meeting and what they're doing with that term, and how it was created and developed. Y'all might want to check that out. But I would say melanin, paleo Indians, melanin Indians. How about that? I just throwing something out there. But well, anyway, y'all, you can check out that video and also the other video on the gentrification as well. And what I mentioned earlier, I did a video on that as well. It says here, cultural content, American Indian worldview. American Indian nations possess an inherent and unique political status based on sovereignty. This legal political status conveys dual citizenships among the specific rights and responsibilities. This inherent political status sets American Indian nations apart from all other racial and ethnic groups in the United States. And it says here, the inherent political status. And it says Americans possess an inherent unique political status based on sovereignty. And they know this. They got status with the sovereignty. And the reason why we don't have it is because we don't know who we are. They said, like I said, President Obama says black don't have no standing in the court of law. It's because they pretty much written us out of everything, excluding us out. And so that's why they treat us any kind of way. And we have not identified ourselves as being indigenous American Aborigines. Things will change once we do identify ourselves as being American Aborigines. And that's something I'm researching, trying to figure out how. And that's what we need to. And I think just gaining this knowledge and learning exactly who we are and how the importance of identifying as an American Aborigine is your birthright. I'm sorry about that. Things would change. Like I said, we got to change our mindset. And we've got to learn and grow and take this information and learn from it. And it says here, teacher background information, the tribal sovereignty. Tribal sovereignty refers to the rights of American Indian tribes to determine their future. The American Indian tribes, through elected tribal government, have the right to operate as a self-governing nation. Then it goes down here. The historic perspective. The United States government signed treaties with tribal nations. It affirms the inherent sovereignty of the tribes. American Indians tribes have always been sovereign nations and control their own destiny. The United States Congress acknowledged this under House Concurrent Resolution 331. Amongst the attributes of sovereignty are American Indian controls of the land and inherited powers. The inherited powers includes the power to determine the form of government, to define conditions of memberships in the nations, to administer justice, enforce laws, to tax, to regulate domestic relationships of its members, and to regulate property taxes. And see, we don't have no rights here in this land. As a matter of fact, it's like the Indians that are claiming Indians, a lot of them who are the $5 Indians, who are actually gray Caucasians, and also the ones who are half-breeds, and a few of the Mongoloids, they're the ones that are reaping these benefits of the taxes, but the original Aborigines are not reaping the benefits at all. So if anything, we're the ones that are the most heavily taxed, because the ones who are low income or middle income are the ones that are most heavily taxed, while the rich and the elite don't pay hardly anything. And so what happens is, even though we're the indigenous people, we're taxed the hardest, and they're reaping the benefits all the way around. It's like the system is set up for whichever way you go. It's like they're taking your money regardless. It's like, and it's set up by design to keep you from being able to accumulate wealth and to grow and prosper, because they're constantly they put in your jail, getting free labor, still modern day slavery. They tax the heck out of you. You're paying the most in taxes. Your money is still gone. You deny access into an Indian tribe because they use racist tactics to do so. They due to Dawes Commission and all those laws and legalities they put in place, including Jim Crow, they made it possible for them to keep the American Aborigines from being able to self-identify as being Indian, and also having it stripped by the census, and having everybody being classified as Black when nationality they're linked or tied are direct descendants to the original tribes here in the Americas. See, a lot of this is going on, and then it's like you don't have no rights here. Everything, because you're not identifying as an Indian, which is your true identity, and they're keeping it race because they want to keep on having access to whatever wealth or any money or anything you have to offer. They strip from you and it benefits them only. And that's how they're also able to take your land, through these tactics such as gentrification, and also the high taxes they have, and the unfair mortgage rates that they give to the American Aborigines, because they label you as Black, and they give you extra high taxes and high rates and loans in comparisons to other ethnic groups. And that's another tactic of them taking more of your money, and also making it easier for them to take your property if you fall behind on your mortgages or even on your taxes, and so all these written tactics that they use in law and policy making is how it's done. And the only protection we have is being sovereign and having and self-identifying as American Aborigines. And it says here, one of the aspects of sovereignty is to be able to exert power to enforce sovereignty. And that's something we haven't done. A lot of people are afraid and still living in fear. Some people are still brainwashed to the brainwashing effect of indoctrination and still want to believe the same narrative that Greys have created, and that we need to open our eyes to the truth. And it says here, the government of the nations have always operated in accordance with the democratic principles. An example is the Iroquois Confederacy. The framers said the U.S. Constitution based many of their basic concepts of the Confederacy. So each nation within the Confederacy select individuals to represent themselves in the Confederacy meetings. Issues were deliberate until there will be an agreement of common course of action. This method of decision making still is used today, called consensus democracy. But this is going to be it, you guys. They're doing a lot of work here in this where I stay. A lot of construction, something going on. So maintenance people. But I just wanted to. This is going to be it to this part. I'm going to do another part on this video about sovereignty and understanding Indian history and law, and how it's important that our kids start learning, because we're already behind, because we learn nothing but colonization laws. Everything has been set based on what Caucasians have developed and implemented in the school systems through indoctrination. That's why it's important that we introduce our children to this curriculum. It's a lengthy article. It's like 28 pages. It's another article I wanted to share with you guys, but I don't think I'm gonna have time in this video. And I've got a lot, so I'm gonna probably do a number 2 to this video, so I can go into detail. Next time we'll talk about the treaties, the policies. Like I said, there's policies in place with these things, federal policies, and probably the federal policies being pretty lengthy, and and the needs for historical accuracy. I'm not sure if I want to do that one, because I think that's lengthy too. But I'll probably go over the next 2 sections of this particular curriculum. We're going to go over it, and I want to share it with you all. How do I get rid of this? But anyway, let me bring you all back over here. So this is it for you guys, and computer is acting a little funny right now. So